Welcome back to Subcut, the medical-ish podcast where we talk about I forgot the whole intro. Let me do that again. Welcome back to Subcut, the medical-ish podcast where we get under the skin of things that you might care about if you're a student or a doctor or a healthcare professional or anyone that's interested in healthcare. My name is Justin. I used to be a doctor.
My name's Neil. I'm a fifth-year medical student.
I'm Emma. I'm a fourth-year physiotherapy student.
I'm Niket. I'm a first-year biomed student.
I'm Karmveer, and I'm a first-year biomed student as well.
Yeah, so we obviously got these two guests here today. And the purpose of the episode today, as you can probably tell from the title, is that we're looking into what the first year experience has been like, for both of you guys. We talk often about how the challenges of pre-med are like, they're very different from high school, how there is, a big jump. There are things you need to prepare for. There are, things that we can warn you about, but only when you actually are like facing it do you know what it feels like. And I thought it'd be a good time of the year and a good experience for listeners to actually hear it directly from you guys in terms of how you found it, going into the year, coming in from high school. What was the first day like? What was the first week like, and that sort of thing. So, why don't one of you start? Maybe just start by introducing like a bit of your background, like what school you went to and how your year 13 was, and then how that first kind of week felt for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sweet. So my name's Karmveer again, and I went to Ormiston Senior College, and my year 13 was pretty much, it went well, but with COVID, obviously, we didn't get to do much. It was a lot more free time, but then around term 2, term 3, I did start looking more into JTT and mid because I was concerned about next year. So yeah, did start prepping and like looking into like videos from Justin Subcut around term 3, and yeah.
Well, you've had quite a bit of more extra prep time than me. My year 13 was prepping me to get into engineering. I went to ACG Sunderland and I kind of covered all my bases. I did all my sciences, but I didn't actually think about doing medicine until I got that fast track offer for medicine. So once I got my offer for engineering, I just did a lot of looking into the syllabus, what I actually wanted to do with myself. And yeah, I found out that I wanted to torture myself. So I went through first year biomed.
Nice. Okay. Wait, quick question. Just so that the listeners can just get a sense for like where you guys are at and like how relevant the story is going to be. Can you just give like a ballpark in terms of like how your year 13 grades and sort of your academic life was in high school? Just, you don't have to be like super specific, but just an idea at least.
Yeah, it was good enough for biomed. More than enough for biomed. Yeah.
I did NC and got excellence endorsement in all 3 years.
So I come from Cambridge background. So basically just A stars.
Yeah.
Yo.
Okay. And that
Oh, sorry.
and that's compared to the people that are around you in your first year,
Mhm.
is that would you say that you're kind of like around the same, a little below, a little above average, like based on what you know?
Based on the Cambridge course I did for chemistry, bio, physics, I do feel like I have an upper hand in some areas.
No, sorry, I mean like in terms of like just other people in your cohort, because there's going to be a lot of other people that did Cambridge as well.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
in terms of like,
Yeah. I feel like everyone's on equal footing at this point in the year. Yeah.
Yes, same for sure. Excellence was not too hard to get in NCA. You just had to look at the keywords and get in pretty much.
I've heard stories about that.
Yeah.
honestly, NCA versus Cambridge, the difference between the two is like negligible when you compare like high school versus uni.
Oh God,
So-
yeah, completely.
So actually, on that note, let's talk a little bit about what your first week was like on your first day. Setting foot into the lectures. How did that all feel like? Really try to paint the story of how it felt, what you were doing. How did it feel in yourself? Kind of navigating through it. Any memorable challenges or points that you were like, oh, this is not what I expected, or anything like that.
So going into physical lectures, your first hurdle to get over is Auckland transport. Obviously, waking up at 6:30 in the morning, trying to get your morning lectures in, that was a big step up from just getting a ride to school. Yeah, I feel like the brunt of the work in the day comes from just traveling, and that was like the very very hardest thing to get over in the first week, but obviously it did get easier, but it was hard to find that equilibrium in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. Because our first 2 weeks was lockdown, so we were at home.
Oh,
But then
yeah.
once we did come back, honestly, I feel it was more motivating seeing like the entire cohort walking in.
Mhm.
Did kind of push me to want to do better, essentially.
Yeah, I felt like I did feel that pressure from seeing everyone just 40 minutes before the lecture started.
Oh yes.
The halls were completely filled with the largest crowd I've ever seen. And it felt exciting. I like that social aspect of uni. That's why I choose to go into uni every day instead of, might be more efficient doing it at home, but I choose to go to lectures. And yeah, it did motivate me. It motivated me greatly because that whole Zoom lecture, those were really demotivating for me
Do
personally.
you reckon it can be overwhelming though, like seeing like
Mhm.
800 people or like you're competing with essentially?
I was never daunted by large crowds,
Yeah.
but some of my friends around me, they were like shaking, like visibly shaking. So I'm like, oh, it's starting. Uni is officially starting now.
Were you guys surprised by, I get the sense that you guys might have been one of the more top students in your high school. It's okay to say yes. Were you guys surprised by, going into this room and being like, oh, actually, everyone here was basically almost like the top student? Like, it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Because like, that when you've done well and now you're in a room with everyone else and you're just the normal. How was that? Did you feel that?
Yeah, kind of, it finally clicked that people are in biomed for a reason. And those reasons are normally the same reasons that you got into biomed. So what distinguishes you from them is your first few weeks, your first few quizzes, your first few labs. It's really like shedding everything that you've learned about yourself in high school to become someone else at uni, especially in biomed. I mean, compared to other courses, obviously. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's such a textbook question as well. And you guys don't have to give me your interview answer. Just give me a true answer because my true answer to this question was really, really simple. But why mid? What sort of inclined you towards is like a personal backstory sort of thing, or just that's could be cool.
Yeah, so everyone in my mother's side of the family are doctors, and everyone on my father's side are
There we go.
engineers.
Yeah.
So I had a wide variety of options, you could say.
For me, up to like year 11, 12, I didn't really know. I was just looking at the subjects that I was doing well in. And I actually wanted to do biomedical engineering, but then the job opportunity in New Zealand for that isn't much. Therefore, I decided let me have a try at biomed and then mid. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And I suppose like we can move on further now into what the year's been like. And how many weeks has it been since you guys started?
So 5 proper weeks of lectures,
Yeah.
6 weeks of
Yeah.
total.
Yeah. So far, everything that you expected it to be, or
Definitely the largest step up I've seen from anything because from my year 11 to year 12, like our syllabus completely changed. We had to ramp up all the studying we had to do. And I felt like that was the biggest jump in my life. Now going from year 13 to uni, that's elementary. That's completely preschool stuff. Yeah, it's combined with the freedom you get from uni. It You choose to do what you need to do in your own time. In school, you get hounded every week for what you need to do to keep up with the class, but yeah, yeah, it's very different to how they treat you in uni. And sometimes you slip, sometimes you do more than you need to. Um, yeah, it's finding that balance.
The difficult thing is also you don't really know exactly what you need to, when you're first at uni, it's kind of like a little bit confusing what the right amount even is.
Mm.
Yeah. Was your experience pretty similar to that, or?
Yeah, the first week, as you said, like I did not because we went to the body systems, right? And we briefly cover like we just go in one lecture. So it's like really daunting on how much into the body systems do I need to know? Because they literally have one slide for a body system with a bunch of sentences. But then you can actually go in so much more
Yeah.
detail. And it's interesting.
It's definitely interesting, but when you look at the lecture slides for revision and you see 80 lecture slides waiting for you that evening, some of that interest you have in the topic really starts to dwindle that evening.
Yeah, pretty rapidly.
Yes.
So, okay, let's talk about the lectures themselves because I think it's important for year 13 students that are coming into it. You know, we're about to at the time we're recording this, we're about to run some webinars for year 13, year 12 students, and we're going to tell them the whole spiel that we always tell, right? About, first year is difficult, you got to prepare for it, you need to have your study skills down, and all of that sort of stuff. So let's try to paint the picture of what it's like in the lecture. So if you take, what you would consider as like pretty reasonable measure of the content in a lecture, and you try to paint some kind of comparison to what maybe a year 12 or year 13 student listening might be able to relate to, what would you give?
I would say like two of, let's say, the most content heavy lectures in biosci is probably equates to like one statistics paper in high school.
Yeah, that's definitely how it feels like. Something that we covered in chemistry over 3-4 lectures is something that we'd spend 6 weeks on in college. And that's really hard to get your mind around when you go back to revision. I mean, obviously, if it's something you did in college, it is revision, but still it's hard to get over everything that you've done in such a short time.
Yeah. How does that make you feel though? Because I mean, like coming out of that, like, yeah, that's ridiculous, the expectation that's there. But also a lot of the time you end up working towards it and you end up meeting that expectation. A lot of people might, end up getting stressed and really, really like on the downward spiral with that. But yeah, what was your take on it? Did you surprise yourself at all?
I did do a bit of pre-study, so I try to go to the lectures not viewing the content for the first time, so I'm not like confused with the concept. But I'm like just looking at like extra things the lecturer might say. But then again, doing this, looking back at year 13, how long I spent just writing useless notes at like one subject. I'm like, I could have done that so much quicker. So yeah.
Exactly. Getting into uni is the feeling of shedding everything you've ever known, like linear note taking, going to your teachers after class to iron out questions instead of going on a website and posting a question, waiting for 2 hours. It's You're reforming all your study habits in your first few weeks, and well, for me, that was the biggest hill I've had to climb, and I still am climbing that hill, frankly.
Yeah, I would say so. Obviously, when people start off in biomedical health science, particularly with, you know, with them trying to aim for med, you don't really have much time in the first 2 weeks to figure out that difference between high school and uni. And obviously, being someone who's never tried to get into medicine, I went straight into physiotherapy. Um, I really, I feel really lucky that I got to have those first 2 weeks of just like, oh, what's uni about? Like, what's a week about? Like, oh yeah, like let's go to town, like those kinds of things. And like, I'm sure that you guys don't feel like you guys got that opportunity. But on top of that, you had lockdown in the first 2 weeks of your first year at uni. How are you guys feeling with navigating like that uncertainty while being in one of the hardest years of your academic life so far?
That's a heavy question to lay on.
Well, for me, first 2 weeks were like pretty hard because I do not like studying at home. I do go library or something. But then after I actually do like what I look forward to after a lecture are the like JTT tutorials because the social aspect of the tutorials. Like I'm not trying to promote.
Plug.
Not,
We're gonna plug
yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, but like honestly, because normally you hear like scary stories of how people are at biomed, but like everyone at the tutorials are like super nice, super kickback, and you can actually make some good friends.
Mm.
So, like that's what I look forward to.
Yeah, I for one, I can't get anything done during study groups. I'm just very social. If I'm in that social aspect, my mind just switches off studying. But going to JTT, again, shameless promo. But it's been the easiest method to find like-minded people because you surround yourself by the people that you want to aspire to be like, right? And it really helps you find that balance. Like you just throw in a question in the group chat and you get a like answer back, and people are like stressed out just like you're stressed out. It feels good to have people that are kind of like you, just like a
Stressed
text
together.
away, stressed together. Yeah.
Actually, on that note, you guys currently still living at home or living in halls?
I got massive FOMO from not being at dorms.
Okay.
Honestly,
Same.
what are your views?
Yeah, like because my friends are at halls and sometimes he tags me and I study there. It's such a nice environment.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I know that there are going to be people that ask this question because people always ask this question when we talk about this is, the social aspect of it. Like, there's lots of ways that you can get the social aspect. One way, well, there's not lots, there's really two main ways. One of the ways, obviously, you guys talking about is coming to the tutorials that we have. And, people originally, and I'm sure it was the same for both of you, where initially you're thinking like, oh, it's going to be really good for me academically. But then once you come to it, you realize actually the main benefit of it is like psychologically.
definitely.
Yeah, and you sort of, I think a lot of students coming into the year really underestimate how much of a difference the psychological component And I'm very upfront about that when I, tell people about classes. I'm like, okay, you can come to classes, you're gonna sign up because you think it's academically good for you, but you're gonna realize that actually the reason that you come to it is because of the psychological benefit, and even when you tell them upfront, they're like, oh yeah, sure, 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 sure. And then, you know, but then the second aspect is if you live in a hall, you can also get a lot of that social component.
Exactly.
I guess the slight difference is that it's a little less filtered. It's not like you're getting like sociopaths living next to you in the hall, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people there. Some halls can be a little bit rowdier.
Mm.
If you a bit less good with self-management, then you may kind of derail a little bit more into, a few things like that. But don't feel like you're going to be socially isolated unless you either live in a hall or come to the tutorials, because
Definitely.
there are ways to make friends, even like you said, coming to lectures and things like that. How have you actually found the social aspect of it in terms of the vibe that you get in the lectures? Like, do people feel, if you're a year 13 student, thinking, what's it going to be like sitting in a lecture theater? Like, am I going to feel stressed? Is it going to feel like really competitive? When I'm studying, am I going to be like super stressed out all the time? What is it that actually brings you stress? What is it that, prevents that stress?
Do you want to go ahead with this one?
Okay, so for me personally, what like does make me feel stress is looking at the end goal of like how many people get in. I want to get in. And looking at the grades you have to get, and like I don't know, just overthinking that sometimes does bring me stress. I feel like ways I do cope with it is literally I just have study groups, I guess, and it's just all of us studying together, helping each other out. It's a nice environment.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like thinking about the end goal is sort of me bringing my own demise. When I have just afternoons, I like settle around 4 or 5 hours just to get through some content, and slowly, when I get through all of that, there's this like little bugging voice at the back of my head saying, "Yeah, there's a test. Yeah, yeah, everything this year rides on that test. Oh yeah, and enjoy the rest of your night though." But when I go to lectures, I see like we're all like stressed, anxious uni kids who got thrown in from year 13. We're all in the same sinking ship. So I find comfort in the fact that everyone's going through it. So that's what I also like going into lecture theaters. I don't feel stressed from the tension in the air, which I'll backtrack on that when I get to the test day. But the tension in the air actually helps me get a better understanding of where everyone's at. Yeah, it's good to think about it in that aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Not more so for you guys because it seems like you guys have figured it out already. I do also want to
Further
hear
from
your
the truth.
perspective on it, but I don't think I've ever talked about this on the show before, but my role at JTT was actually just like the receptionist. Like I started off volunteering here simply because I wanted to know a bit more about medicine before dedicating 6 years to studying it and then a whole life, and I stayed here for 2 weeks and I was like, definitely not. But then I ended up sticking around as a receptionist, but a big part of my role later on became that I was secretly kind of like monitoring everyone to see what they were like mental health wise. And I can honestly say, like, coming to JTT, not because JTT, but like just in general, having a group of like-minded people in the same room to talk to each other and go through the same experiences with was so important. And to me, like from my perspective, as someone who has never had to experience the stress, I really thought that mental health and having some people to talk to actually ended up being one of the biggest defining factors for those that were going to be able to get through the year. And that's just, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong, because every person that I predicted would get in basically got in. And you could tell that, everyone there, as we've said, is academically strong. And you can learn study habits, but if you're not able to manage that stress and find people to share that stress with, but also talk about other things with. There were times where I made social circles and I made everyone sit down on the ground. I was like, we are going to talk about something else apart from studying today. We are going to have a life outside of med. That was like so important. And yeah, I just want to say people do not take that for granted.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, actually, on that note, the story is like we're sitting here right now, and a lot of people. It's actually funny that because we get students obviously that listen to the podcast and they come into first year, and then they like walk into this room and they're like, oh, this is like where you guys shoot the podcast, and it's like, yeah, it is. But the thing is, like, the reason actually this area initially when we got this space, there were some desks over here for people to like study in small groups, and the reason that we actually have like you guys can't see. But maybe if you like subscribe, you'll see in a future episode when we do a tour of this place. We've got like beanbags here, and we have like a guitar hanging on the wall, which you guys will have seen, a guitar hanging on the wall. And we tried to make this like a space that feels nice and cozy. And the reason actually for creating this space was because of Emma's like little social circles. Yeah, so yeah, so I found out, like, I can't remember who told me, but like one day I found out that you were just kind of like running these little like like these I don't know what to call it, like social groups.
They're doing
sympathy circle.
They're doing what in my room? Sympathy circle.
Not studying.
And I was like, that sounds awesome. So I think then I got the beanbags in there, and then I found out that Irisha, who's behind the camera there, who's our student coordinator this year, was like playing guitar when she was in first year with some of the other people, and so I bought a guitar and chucked it on the wall. So like I think that social thing is really like what drives people, because you don't normally see like a group of students just like laughing and having fun and like enjoying first year. And even if they don't get into medicine, still being like that was a really cool kind of experience is not a very kind of common sort of thing. Oh.
Yeah. In that year, I used to be the class pop health tutor and stuff as well. And I was completely surprised the first time when I saw Emma doing this and stuff with these kids as well. And I thought back to.
Can I just say that completely comes from a perspective of someone who's never had to experience the stress. Like everyone here is probably stressed 24/7. I was like, what you did on the weekend, which is anything that was not study related, so I'm sorry, but it was for your own good.
Regardless, it was really, really good. And I thought back to my first year and I was like, this is really, really like rare to come by. And exactly with what you said, I came in with that single-minded approach. And you guys probably, along with a lot of your other peers, is just, okay, at the end of this year, I need to receive that acceptance email so that I'm set for my life. And that's literally, right, that's like the only thing that you really ever worry about. But it's such a more mature mindset, and you actually become such an interesting like first year candidate as well, let alone just another a more interesting person. When you're able to look at that decline letter, if that's what you ended up giving with, and still say at the end of the day, like, it was a good year and I would not regret doing it again in that way.
In my opinion, I've had some postgraduates from my college get that decline letter, and you saw they went through uni solo. They didn't make many friends. They were attacking the tide head on, and when they got that decline letter, they were completely crushed. But they didn't have the ability to say, "I'm glad I took the year. I grew as a person because of biomed." They said, "I wasted my year. What now?" And I feel like that.
Yeah, that's really sad. I see that sometimes as well with like a lot of students that are coming into like for example, we get that a lot sometimes with students that come in just for the interview course. They've already had a terrible time in their first semester. They come in for the interview course, and then we go through some interview stuff at the end of the year. They're just like, well, that was a waste of time because they just didn't make anything out of that experience. Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask Soph on behalf of like students that are listening. If you just sit and think about kind of what you think, the typical year 12 or year 13 student that's looking into going into pre-med, like what's something that you think that they should really know? Look, we've already talked about the idea of, learn to take care of yourself, don't underestimate that social psychological aspect of it. So except for that, which is undoubtedly important, what is something that you think that maybe a lot of students are either undervaluing the importance of, or they're not considering that with 5 weeks of experience, you would actually give that advice? And just FYI, 5 weeks doesn't seem like a lot from high school timeline, but I can guarantee you, 5 weeks at uni, first year pre-med feels like a whole, like, what, 2-3 terms of, it's just intense.
I've lived an entire life already. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, it's like Inception, when like they go like into a layer and then you live like this whole life. What's that guy, that Japanese dude? If you Jaden, can you check a clip of that Japanese guy from Inception into
I'm an old man, filled with regret.
that guy where like you meet him at the beginning. Sorry, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched Inception. A really good movie. You should pause now and watch if you should. Haven't. But there's that Japanese dude at the beginning. He's like an old man. And you find out that was like your buddy or something. He's just been living there a whole lifetime in the time it took for, like, I don't know, like a pencil to drop. Yeah. That's what pre-med is like. You drop your pencil and then you come up and then you graduated already. So 5 weeks, the point is 5 weeks is plenty of time to get a feel for what pre-med is like and to really have been put under the pump, of that pressure. So given that reflection, what's something that you guys would tell to year 12 or year 13 student that they might not be thinking about?
I would say like a priority list, like knowing what you have to do. Because like the biggest mistake you could do is like get behind on work, because there's a lot. Because if you're behind, then they're also throwing work at you. So that and study skills, essentially. Like if you work from year 12 and 13, because my study skills in year 13 were not good. Like, for example, my physics teacher gave us like the entire course book with bolded words. And as she talked, she said, highlight the bolded words. The bolded words. They're already standing out, but we had to highlight them.
I have a very similar story. In chemistry.
Just shut up.
Got some thoughts on that.
Just shut up.
Our chemistry teacher would hand us an entire booklet of the topic we were doing. For example, kinematics. He made the notes for us. We had to just highlight what he told us to highlight. And by the time the exam came on, he's like, oh, you got the notes. You should know everything by now. And you scrape by. Every month, you just scrape by in year 12 and year 13 with the marks you get. And once you get into uni, no. Months before you get into uni, forget everything you know. Just forget everything. In year 12 and 13, whatever you did to study for your exams, whatever you did to study for your weekly quizzes, forget it. Stop it.
I just want to point out, those of you that are listening on
I am
audio,
traumatized.
may not be able to see this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Yeah. If you can see this on YouTube, you would see that Niket's got some, intense hand gestures coming on, but they're all under the table. Everything he's saying is like really purposeful and driven.
You have to keep this in mind. If this is the last thing that is heard from me in this world, keep that in mind.
Send help.
They're so passionate about this.
I cannot tell you, the first 3-4 weeks were absolute hell trying to keep up with lectures. I did keep up. I ended up keeping up every Sunday night and then studying pre-study for the next week. You find yourself in a vicious cycle. And the thing is, everything you do in the months before uni starts, you need to try prevent yourself getting into that vicious cycle. And again, shameless plug, what I've learned at JTT is perfect. Linear note-taking. Take that out the window. Whatever you've done to study for exams, out the window. I don't care what you use to study for exams. Out the window. Start fresh. You start with a fresh mind. And that really gets you ready for the next step, and that being uni.
I think I've answered this question before myself as well, and I've taken a much different take on it previously. Probably more like practical, or like learn how to study more, do this, do that, and stuff. But I think, a few years on after, God, I'm so old. Wow, so old now. But I think the few years that I've like looking back retrospectively, at least, I've sort of realized that, there's a reason why your mature students, your postgrad students, always inevitably do better at uni. And it's just like, it just comes down to the fact that they can just they just know themselves and they manage themselves a lot better. And that'll come down to the fact that they've been on this earth alive for a little bit of a longer time. Arisha's just making a little Converse noise with her shoe. Again, yeah, I mean, they missed the shot in the camera shot anyway. But I think if like going back to the year 12 and 13 students and the experiences that we would, ask from them and things that we would ask, less of a practical tip, but I'd say just do more stuff. And when I say do more stuff, I mean like go out more, study more, do more work, like work harder as well, make more meaningful relationships, like live more experiences and stuff. Try age without aging. Get the experience that growing older would give you by not wasting your years in the added time that year 12 and 13 gives you, because you end up filling up that time regardless, right? School doesn't really push you. You know what it's like to be pushed now.
Yes.
But if you could go back to year 12 and 13, imagine the hours and the days or the months that you would have had to spare and the amount of stuff that you could have done instead. You could write an essay about it. You could write a book about that
definitely.
stuff. And so, yeah, just bear in mind that you are a lot more capable than you might think you are at the time. And that's going to be a rule for the rest of your life. You're probably more capable than you are, next year than you are now, currently. Assuming we're on that path and on the trend. But that's the goal.
Well said.
To add to what you're talking about, is that when you're in high school, you're in this mentality of just trying to get that particular grade or that outcome. And then you figure out how the system works and you just game the system.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, you can only game the system for so long, but you're not really you're not gaming the system. You're gaming yourself, because you're taking away like skills that you could develop, or you're taking away experiences that you could have. And if you just continue to do the bare minimum to just get a scrape, like Niket, what you're talking about, like scraping by to get the grade. And we're not talking about scraping by to pass, right? We're actually talking about scraping by to get like pretty good results.
Yeah.
And even if you're getting top results, it doesn't mean that you're not scraping by. And so like if you do the bare minimum, then you're going to get the bare minimum out of it, which is going to be congratulations, you got a grade, pat, good job, go out into the world. You took none of that grade with you. What do you take with you? Do you have experiences? Do you have insight? Do you have perspective? Do you have maturity? Do you have, life skills? Do you have study skills? Do you have people skills? If you don't have any of that, you just lost the whole tutorial level of your life, aka high school.
Yeah.
And like you're just gonna be, just like a noob grinding out, like, So it's just not a sustainable way of, I think there's probably a lot of stuff to talk about, with the experience of first year. And like I said, you've lived like a whole lifetime in the last 5 weeks. Maybe, later in the year, depending on your mental state, we'll invite you guys back to see and do a comparison of how that was like after your first semester.
One of us we're gonna be gone. Like one of us will not make it mentally.
Hopefully we'll be able to invite both of you guys back.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless all the fans, hate you. In which case,
fans, the haters in the comments, bro.
Yeah. So if you, if you liked this sort of stuff, if you have any other comments or questions that you really want to get from a pre-med student that is currently, living it right now, or has some different types of perspectives, maybe you want to hear from a student that's had a certain type of situation in high school or something like that. Whatever your idea is, leave a comment in the video on YouTube, or just send us a message on Facebook on the JTT page or the Subcut page, and we'll try to put that in for the next episode. And if any of you guys are listening right now and you are a high school student and you're thinking about going and you're wondering, how do I do all of this stuff in terms of studying more effectively or planning my year and all of that, because like you guys have both mentioned, is that what you do in year 13 actually can have a lot of carryover effects. And if you leave it until end of year 13, you're probably going to struggle a lot more to, bridge that deficit. Yeah. So if any of you listening are interested in that, then you can go onto the website, jttmed.com, where we run webinars basically every single month talking about this type of thing. They're free and you can just jump in and listen to it, or just, binge some of the other episodes where we talk about, probably a lot of everything that you need to know. Anyway, but thanks both of you for joining. Any last words that you want to leave behind?
To the year. Oh God,
Tell my dad I love it.
To everyone listening, these are my last few comments. But to everyone in year 12 and 13, don't sacrifice your social life for those grades. I mean, aim for an A plus, aim for a 95, 98, 99. Don't sacrifice your social life. Don't sacrifice anything for getting above what you need for an A star. For example, I've seen too many people in my class, our top 3 people who got top in New Zealand and top in the world for math, physics, chemistry. Uh, they lost quite a lot to get what they gained. So,
And you don't have to. You can get good results without and be social.
I went to parties and we all ended up in biomed. So, um, weigh your options. Again, like Karim said, like give priority to what's important, because what you're going to be doing for the next few months right before before year 13 ends, it really does build up your skills for uni.
Sure. And I would say don't go into the year thinking you're doing it alone, because you're just going to lose friends. Go into like the mentality of meeting, branching, networking with like different people.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll be fine.
Well, the great
Hopefully.
Vin Diesel once said, "We ride together, we die together."
And on that note, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever it is. You know the drill. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Subcut. If you guys have any suggestions for content, please make sure you send it through.
You can get in touch and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or find us on our website at jttmed.com/subcut.
Subcut is a podcast brought to you by JTT. If you or anyone you know is interested in a career in medicine, make sure to get in touch and check us out at jttmed.com.